Okay, hello. The first thing that I would like to do is I want to know if you guys can hear me. So if you could give me like a quick thumbs up if you can hear me, that would be great. And if you can see the starting page, which is my ugly face with some text about me. So if we could get that together, I wouldn't even know where to see that, to be honest. Okay, that's great. So I have a chat interface there. Okay, that's good so far. That's good. So I was warned that there's going to be approximately a 10-second. Okay, there's a lot of people. Don't try to make me nervous here. I was warned there's going to be approximately a 10-second delay between what I'm saying until it arrives in your place. Good sound quality, Patrick. So that's good. So I also don't have like a double, because I'm not sure if it's just my headphones and my microphone on the laptop or if it's just my headphones. As some of you that may know me know, I am really unbelievably terrible when it comes to computers. Thank you, Patrick. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, I'm gonna wait like another couple of minutes, but then guys, please, it will be impossible for me to follow your chat because by now there is already quite some people on there. It's gonna be impossible for me to follow your chat and answer your questions live, also because there's this 10-second interval and it would really drive me crazy. So if there's something in the talk that is not clear or that you would like to have some more information, then please just send me like an email or a Facebook message. Okay, sounds great. The space between the left and the right ear. Yeah, in my case, most certainly, because I have absolutely too much time off at the moment. There is no picture. That is weird, Kim, because everybody else seems to have a picture. Is somebody else that doesn't have a picture? I'm waiting for any information on pictures. Picture is there. No picture either. So it's weird. Some people seem to have a picture and some people don't seem to have a picture. I see the picture, no picture. Okay, so some people have picture and some people don't have picture. Maybe let's just wait a couple of more moments. It might, just an ugly face, yeah, that's mine. There might be an issue with your internet connection, so let's wait for a little bit. Picture and audio are working. It's a still picture, yes, because it's going to be a PowerPoint presentation. I think they would like to see you. Yeah, Philip, no. No, you do not want to see me right now. Austria, yes. Maybe refresh the screen, I can do that. Very good input. How is it now? Pictures, yes, no. Picture, yes, picture, no. Hopefully I didn't kill it with the refresh. Holland is okay. Picture is okay. There is no video stream. Yes, but there's no video. The only thing you're gonna get is like a PowerPoint presentation. Yes. Okay, Wendy, can you just be the one person, because Wendy, picture, yes, okay, that's great. Wendy, please be the person that tells me on your Facebook, no, on XDeep, yes. Okay, I just received the information that on the XDeep Facebook page there is everything working. Thanks again to Christoph Stanaski, by the way. I already mentioned him in the Instagram post. Basically, Christoph informed me that he took 2 weeks to prepare himself for this. I started preparing myself like this morning. I thought it wasn't that complicated, to be perfectly honest. But yes, a huge shout out to Christoph Stanowski, legendary cave explorer, very close friend of mine since over a decade, and the guy that saved my life, being with me on the phone and on the computer for like 3 hours today to get it going. I just want to have this one second. I just want to write Wendy and make sure that she gets that also, and then I'm ready to go actually. Picture of you crawling in and out of the cave. Yes, Kim Erlandson has the picture now. I think Wendy was right with the refreshing, which actually Stanowski has already told me. Try the... Okay, fantastic. So good. It seems like everybody gets now picture and sound. Again, guys, this is not a video. This is going to be a PowerPoint presentation. This is going to be the first subject. So obviously, I think a lot of you have already seen or have been to one of my talks about Madagascar. So I'm gonna, for these people, I'm gonna try to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm gonna talk about a little bit also some stuff that went wrong and some other things that usually I do not share. And also this is going to be like the first talk that I'm trying, so I try to use something that I'm most familiar with. I don't have to think about it too much. So Stanowski also just said, if there is anybody that has any problem with anything, they should go to the XDeep page. On XDeep page it seems to work flawlessly, okay? But right now all of the comments that I get from you guys on the left, it seems that everything is working. But Stanas, thank you so much again. Good, let's just jump right into it. I don't want to waste your time because I'm pretty sure that all of you have extremely important things to attend to, Netflix shows, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, all of these really important subjects that we're dealing with on a daily basis at the moment, right? So I don't want to keep you much from that. So I want to jump right into the presentation and hope that this is going to work also. So a little bit about myself for the ones who don't know me. My name is Patrick Widmann. I'm originally from Austria, a very small town actually of 700 people, and learned diving there pretty early. I don't want to bore you too much with that, but basically at the moment, okay, Wendy, try to go to the XDeep Facebook page. Wendy, XDeep Facebook page. 1 second, I'm just going to tell her that. Go to XDeep Facebook page. Good. And so through some really weird coincidence and hard work, I ended up to be one of the owners of ProTec in Playa del Carmen in about since 2008. Then 2011 we opened ProTec Tulum, and I get crazy with everybody talking to me at the same time. Good, but yes, and ever since then my career continued. I'm the PSCI instructor trainer of the instructor trainer evaluator of the area, and I'm also on the board of advisors of PSCI, and I own the licensee together with a business partner of PSCI Mexico and Hispaniola. But I guess one of the things that I got most famous for was that that I created. I was one of the creators of the Stealth 2.0 together with Piotr, a piece of equipment that ultimately I created for my own exploration. I started off quite early with exploring in side mount. There was a company called Equus back then, well, there still is a company called Equus, and I worked with the side mount equipment together with them, and then wanted to take this a notch further, and then ultimately got a really great relationship with Piotr from XDeep. And for those of you who are interested, I'm actually working on a presentation, let's say in a week or in 2 weeks, I'm going to make a presentation, a talk with pictures and the story to tell all of you a little bit the history of side mounting. There's so much fighting going on and so much story going on the internet, and so I think it is just important, or for the people that are really true side mount fanatics, to get a bit of an idea of like who was involved, what happened at what time, and also give the respect to the people that deserve it, people such like Steve Bogers, for example. Okay, good. So we have, I got briefed, then suddenly everybody was wearing Exit Stealth 2.1. Until today I get asked by people how that makes me feel. A bit weird, but not really in a bad way. But of course, if you run around and you know you had something to do with it, it's quite cool. I'm also co-creating dry suits for different companies. At the moment, Seal dry suit, which you can all be very stoked when it comes out. And ultimately, what do I really love doing? So I think an easy way to sum it up is that teaching is a passion of mine. My parents are teachers, my brother is a teacher, his wife is a teacher. Like, teaching was all in my family. Diving, however, is my obsession. Since I'm 12 years old, it's what keeps me captured, and what has my mind spinning around diving 24/7. So ultimately, my main goal in my life was always to be a diver, and funny enough, born in Austria, I was actually an alpinist first, or my first exposure to extreme sports was alpinism. And in 2005, when I lived in Egypt, a German guy actually handed me a book that was called The Deep Descent. I don't know if you guys know it. If you don't, please get it. It is the story of Bill Stone and Barbara Amanda exploring Guadla. And in the middle, you see like pictures of people rappelling with diving equipment. So I was like, hang on, I can dive and I can climb at the same time. This is just too good to be true. So ultimately, cave diving became my main focus and obsession since 2005. I'm also very, very, very happy and very glad to be supported by several brands. And I have to name them because without them, a lot of the things that I do would not be possible. Obviously, X-Deep, who has been there from the very beginning and who was so absolutely, I mean, no matter what request I had, not only for myself, but for the team, was always realized right away. Seacraft, a new supporter, which basically, you know, if you've ever used any underwater scooter and then you go to a Seacraft, you will know exactly what the difference is. And they have been really very essential for a lot of the success that we had in our last project in Madagascar. Seawolf, who provides my undergarments, Light Monkey, who does lighting for us, Shearwater Computers. I don't have to talk about the Shearwater a lot. I think everybody is more than aware what Shearwater means. Kiss Rebreathers, very new, very, very, very fundamental to about 99% of all the exploration success I had in the past year, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about them. In fact, another thing that people asked me to do was to do one of those talks about specifics of the gear that I'm using for the exploration, and also why it is the gear that I'm using. So I'm going to prepare something in like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And ultimately MPS booster systems from Italy and Big Blue that we use for our video. So now comes a very important moment, is when I'm gonna change the slide and we all hope it doesn't fall to pieces. Good, so I know that I'm gonna have to wait approximately 10 to 14 seconds that you guys see the change of picture also, so please, I'm gonna wait because I just want to know if that actually works. Okay, I'm a little bit nerve-wracking right now, but the first person who sees the new picture, if you could do me the favor and say, hey Patrick, we see the new picture, that would be really amazing. Still not. It changed! Oh, Jesus Christ. Technology. Christoph Stanowski, you are not only a legendary deep diver, you are a legend when it comes to computers. Okay, fantastic. So, now I wish all cave exploration would be like you see it on that picture. The main thing is, most of exploration, specifically of cave exploration, has to do with a lot of suffering. So to give you an idea, this is my absolute favorite bed on planet Earth. Okay, it is in the south of Madagascar. To get from my door to the door, or to that bed, is a 5-day journey. Now, how is this? So first of all, I have to fly from Cancun to Atlanta, pretty easy. Then I do Atlanta, Paris, pretty easy. Then I do Paris, Antananarivo. Now, Madagascar is the 4th biggest island of the planet, so it's really way bigger than what most people might think. So it's an 11-hour flight to get to the capital. Once we are in the capital, you have to understand that the planes are too small to transport the copious amount of equipment that we arrive with. Even though we have spent years, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, even though we have spent years of moving equipment with containers, we still travel with about 3 to 4 30-kilo bags each. Philip being the exception, because he brings also, of course, all the camera equipment. So it takes us 5 days, because now we arrive in Antananarivo. Usually we arrive at 1 o'clock in the morning. And by then we already made the mistake of trying to connect flights. And we realized we were only allowed to take 1 bag per person. And of course that didn't work. So now we are renting cars, put all of the equipment into the cars, and it takes the cars 2 full days to drive to the southern tip. This time I usually use to hang out in a hotel, do emails and do other things. In the same time, it's also the most heart melting time. Every time you leave the hotel, you're surrounded by about 20 to 30 between 3 to 7-year-old kids in worn out, broken clothes. They pull on your shirt and they tell you in French how starving they are and how hungry they are, and if you have any money or any food for them. So we should never forget how beautiful and how amazing the pictures in the landscape is, that there is places in this country that are really unbelievably poor and very, very tragic. So once this is done, we're gonna fly from Antananarivo down south. It is approximately an hour-and-a-half flight. And yes, I'm absolutely terrified of flying, and even more so if I'm sitting in a plane that looks like my grandfather built it. And generally the turbulence there is pretty intense. We arrive in a new city, we have to hang out waiting for the drivers to arrive. And of course it would be not nice to ask the drivers to go right away. So we sleep one night there and then continue the next day. To give you an idea, our base camp is 86 kilometers from this town, okay? For the 86 kilometers, the fastest we ever drove it was 7 hours. Why? Because there's almost no roads. We have a road for approximately an hour-and-a-half that has like asphalt, concrete, whatever you want to call it, and then it is all off-road. Meaning 4x4, driving super slow, an incredible amount of moving side to side and up to down. So one time we actually kind of like fucked it up, and it went into the night, and at night we actually can't see where we're really going because there's not really even dirt roads. So it ended up to be an 11-hour trip. An 11-hour trip where you end up in a place like this. So you might go like, well, Patrick, 11 hours, but then I land in a bed like this. Sounds amazing. Well, as you can see, there's no running water, there's no electricity, and there are no roads. No electricity means that we have solar power and we have a generator. However, generators are only used for absolute substantial things such as scooters and dive lights. And the solar panels are used to charge phones and other things, which phones is really only to be used sometimes because kind of like signal goes and signal comes, signal goes. They definitely got better the last couple of years. So that means if we want to take a shower, you basically get one bucket with super boiling water, and they put a root in it, kasafat. And it smells like sauna for the Northern Europeans that can relate to that. But it also looks like steaming diarrhea. And the other one is cold water. And then basically you mix the two buckets together, use a coffee cup, kneel down, squat down, and then just pour that warm water over you and wash yourself, which is really well smelling, but maybe not the greatest way to clean yourself. And for whatever reason, the thought that the other dudes just washed themselves with the same cup always kind of freaks me a little bit out. I'm not quite sure. Anyways, and of course the bed. Bed's really amazing. The mattress is from the 70s. Hence, if you stay there for 1 week, it basically has your body shape. And of course, it's like any insect and animal you can possibly imagine. And as it is like a palapa roof, after a couple of days of wind, you also kind of like sleep in the Sahara Desert. However, you have an amazing sunset every single day. If your dive was not too long, and you actually manage to get back there as long as the sun is up. Good. So, the next thing that is going to happen is a little bit of a sightseeing tour through Madagascar. So, here you can see like the average road. And the road is basically a mix of either sand and dirt, or it's just pure rock. And the pure rock ones just means there's a lot more changing of like direction up and down. And if it is sand, because they have like these huge transporters going through, they make holes, potholes, because they swing from one side to the next. So then you get a lot of lateral movement in the car, which is going to be important later when I talk a little bit about the equipment that we're using, okay? And of course you have this really amazing trees, right? The Baobab tree that grows unbelievably slow, and some of them are over 4,000 years old. Something that I find really quite impressive, if you look at the landscape, right? You see it's generally quite dry, quite bushy, sand, bit deserty, and everything is like unbelievable thorns, is sharp and hurts you quite a bit. So who would have thought, who can imagine that some of the absolute largest caves on planet Earth in sheer size are right underneath a place where people sometimes spend an hour with a bucket on their head walking to a well to get water. And of course, besides that, the landscape. Every time when we come home, if we're lucky enough that the sun is still up, we get really amazing sunsets. And in fact, the caves where we are going to, or where we are exploring, is underneath a baobab forest. So this is a very special, very holy place called the Baobab Forest, where you have not only one or two, but you're literally driving all around through them, and the landscape and the general place is absolutely breathtaking. As mentioned before a little bit, life there, it is really quite poor. But the funny part is, okay, and this is something that I made the experience in many of the poor countries. Maybe in 2-3 weeks I'm going to do also a talk about Tanzania, and specifically about Zanzibar, is that it somehow seems every time that you are in a capital where people depend 100% on government, supermarket, and somebody that provides for them, and then in a poor country people are really quite suffering quite heavily. However, in the moment you come to a place that is off the grid, far away from government, people are actually quite happy and pretty well self-sustained. Of course, when you look at the houses, you go like, wow, that doesn't look like a place where I would like to hang out. But the general spirit of the people and how happy they are is something really, maybe in the next couple of days what I can do, I can upload on my Facebook a small video of the local school there. And when you see all of the smiling kids, it's also none of them has problem with food. Everybody has the belly full because obviously they live off the forest. They also have livestock. So the main issue that they have from like a poorness factor for sure is they are first of all lacking material for clothing. So basically I always travel there with full backpacks of t-shirts and then come back without. Which is quite funny because the ones of you that have been to ProTec, you know that we have our names on the shirts. So by now you can imagine there's like 60 Patricks running around, which is also a bit funny. But generally speaking, you have these self-made homes, and as you can see, there's not even wooden planks there. It's basically just twigs of a tree that are bound together and made, put into a house. Thanks God, the only real issue that they have is strong winds. There's really no rain or other problem that they have to deal with. Although temperature, as you can imagine, it's a desert. Meaning that during the day it's incredibly hot and at night it's incredibly cold. And yes, I am from Austria, so if I tell you it's cold, it is really pretty cold. So choosing the time of the year when we go to explore is really quite important as well, because we want to find that good balance between not being too hot during the day and not being freezing at night. Okay. To give you a little side story, so you see this village, right? So one time we come to the village and there's no Sherpas. So, and usually there's a huge fight of people that want to carry our stuff, right? Because that's the way they make money. So they go like, hey, Patrick, there is no Sherpas here today. And I'm like, what happened? Well, another village has sent them a letter that said that at Sunday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they will come 400 people and they will kill everybody to steal their livestock. And it was actually in that moment quite clear, or we thought that the letter was simply there to scare everybody into the forest so that these people would have easy access just to come steal their livestock and fuck off. Now, it's still a quite interesting situation when you realize that on the way to go cave exploring, you might encounter 400 people on warpath, so to speak, that are trying to rob the next village. So something that is truly clear for me about Madagascar, the things that I've experienced there, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a little later when we talk about the people a bit more, but some of the things that we've experienced there are literally like you could write in a book and people wouldn't believe you. Good. So, and then here we have just like a standard hut. If I would tell you that 7 people live in this very hut, it would be obviously quite hard to imagine for one of us. But it's one family, so it's mom, dad, and the kids. A quite funny side aspect about the kids, there are a lot of kids. Oh my god, so many kids. And well, I guess, you know, if there's no television and no smartphone and no other activities, I guess, you know, making kids seems to be the funnest thing one can do in his day, because generally speaking, those people literally live to eat. So they wake up, they go into the forest and try to get like potatoes and other things, as well as to go fish, of course. But besides eating, that's basically, or organizing stuff to eat, that is really basically the only thing they have to do. So in this small hut lives this family, but a really, really adorable family. And right in front of it, you would have the school, and around it, there are several other of these little houses. Something that I really, truly enjoy is when we come back at night from one of the explorations, because there's no light pollution, right? It's super ultra dark. which means you can see the stars really amazingly. And every time when you come close to one of the villages, you see like all of these little fires where people are cooking on open fire to get their food going. So that's always something quite special and nice. And you can also see the floor in the picture pretty well. So it's this like sand, which makes walking over longer periods of time also quite exhausting, to be perfectly honest. And these people, these guys, these Sherpas are definitely the most badass Sherpas the world has ever seen. By the way, excuse my colorful language, but the ones of you who know me know I tend to swear just every once in a while, a little bit, just occasionally. Good. So, and then here we are already. This is our base camp. It is on like a land strip that goes out. So basically, when you look at the picture, on the right hand side of the picture is the ocean, and on the left hand side of the picture is the ocean. So this is like a tongue of land that pokes out. And on the left hand side of the picture, there would be the lagoon, which I'm going to show you a picture in a second. When you look at the car, so this is one of the 3 rental cars, or 3 out of 4 rental cars that we rent each time we go there. To give you an idea, it is 150 euros rent per car per day. For some of you that have asked me if exploration is expensive. Right behind it, you actually see a bathtub. So that's that wooden thing with the white top. And that gives you an idea that a lot of the life in Madagascar actually happens outside houses. On the left hand side, you can even see some of the beds where the people that work and live there live. But basically all of the life happens exactly in that pretty small space. So, and this is the other side. So when I told you, when you remember the house, and I told you on the right hand side is the ocean, and this right hand side ocean is also the place where I see my sunset, right, when I'm lying in my bed. So right now in this picture, you can actually see the sun rise. So this is how every day in the morning the sunrise looks like. And you have the lagoon there. And the lagoon is called Baie d'Assassin, which is French and means Assassin's Bay, which is a really pretty cool pirate story. Don't ask me exactly about the details, but apparently a Portuguese boat was anchored there, and then the next day everybody was dead and everything was stolen, and so it's a pretty cool pirate story, and I stick to that. So we basically explore caves where pirates used to live, and being a big pirate fan myself, that just adds a lot to the story. Something that is quite impressive. All the water that you see right in front of you right now will disappear during a day. It is extremely tidal. And why is that important? Because when we explore caves, when we are cave diving, the flow, the water movement in the cave is actually changing based on the tidal movement. So for quite some time we thought, wow man, we found caves with flow, there's like springs and whatnot. But actually it turned out just to be the change of the tides that made the water either move in or move out. In the moment the water moves down, you also see half of the village walking over the reef and then looking for food sources. In fact, if you remember again the picture at the beginning where I'm sleeping, or like where my bed is, at one point I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning because it's freezing, and suddenly I have all of these dancing lights in front of me. And I was like, what is that? Now, I told you that they do have somewhat a problem with overpopulation and too many kids. So what the government does, they give free condoms to each village. So they hope that with the use of condoms, the amount of people would get less. But there is an alternative use for these condoms. Turns out you can buy a very cheap Chinese torch, put it in the condom, make a knot at the end of the condom, and boom, you have a waterproof flashlight. I'm not quite sure that Stanovsky could use one of those on one of his extreme sub 200 meter deep dives, but for the guys that walk around on the reef looking for food, it is definitely enough. Another thing that might be not so interesting to you guys, but is very interesting to us, right there on the other side, there is the same type of like land turn that creates one of the best waves you can possibly imagine. So guess what we are doing on our days off? We go surfing. Good, so as I told you, so this is like the other view. So basically right behind me you would have now our base camp, that big building, which is by itself quite interesting, and I'm going to tell you that story about that building in a split second. Now, why did I take this picture? Because obviously all my pictures are really professionally made with a iPhone. So as you can see, you know, we really don't spare any expenses when it comes to the high quality of our photo material and video material. So what our team managed was, since 2014, we carried approximately 45 cylinders with containers. Well, some actually, like the tank that you see me filling right now, these are 50 cubic foot steel tanks. We actually brought them in luggage. But all of the 80 cubic foot aluminium tanks we brought by container because there wasn't any. The scooters that you see, we brought by container. We also brought nitrox stick, fill panel. The amount of equipment that we have moved over the years to this place is both logistically incredible, because you're dealing with an unbelievable corrupt country. So just because it arrived in the harbor, getting it actually past customs is like a mission by itself. So not so long ago there was a bit of a discussion about, you know, us supporting other divers or like touristic divers to come to Madagascar and to dive. And from the beginning, obviously, we would like to share these amazing caves with other people. In the same time, we do not want to put any of this at risk. And as you can imagine, you know, these caves are holy to the people. So any incident that we would have would basically jeopardize the entire project. So we're trying to be as careful and as possible. So any one of you that has to do with nitrox or rebreathers understands that cleanliness, it is very important. Oxygen clean, right? So as you can see in the picture, we take really great care. There's almost no rust, no sand, no dirt, no debris. We are wearing latex gloves in the same time when we assemble. We only use, of course, specific tribal loop grease for the O-rings, and well, as you can imagine, it is not always possible to work as it would be in our ProTec dive shop. So sometimes we need to accept the risk and work with whatever we have. But so basically all of the blending, all of the mixing, everything happens outside. But yes, so since 2014 we go to Madagascar. So that's 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and it kind of looks like 2020 is not going to be our year. But over those years we have become step by step more and more sophisticated. So what you can see in this picture also is that now we have long range scooters. The thing about those long range sea crafts that is so unbelievably important for us is that they have a battery indicator. Now the most dangerous part for us as far as scooters go is to get them safely to the water and back, because there's sometimes some rappelling and some climbing involved. So one of the things that really helps us is not only that the Seacraft tells you I have 80% battery, I have 60% battery or whatever, it even tells you what's the remaining trigger time at a given speed. or at a given gear. Now, of course, would I 100% take every minute of it and trust my life? Maybe not. But it was definitely amazing for us to know that I can have a scooter, like we could come back from a dive and the scooter said, yo, at speed 5, you still have 120 minutes. And I would be like, yo, where do we need to go tomorrow? Then, you know what? It's fair enough. We can just leave the scooters in the cave. First of all, that made it much safer for the scooter, not having to get transported. It made a faster day for us going back home. We needed less gasoline to fill the scooters that same day, or like less preparation time for the next day with the generators. So we felt it to be a really great advantage. Even from like a bailout range situation, you know, you have the exact trigger time of the scooter also. So it was a really nice piece of equipment to know exactly how far am I from an entrance, and like all of the information was basically live. We are a very safe or safety oriented team. So basically the first days are always used to prepare the cave. So you will find several bailout stations inside the cave, not only cylinders but also scooters, which considering that we have now a cave that's 11 kilometers long, one of them which is 11 kilometers long but only has one entrance, you can imagine that sometimes we're really pretty far away from what could be considered safety. And not only that, there is some pretty small restrictions on the way also. Another thing that made our life really unbelievable better, and you can see on the right hand side, which is an MPS C1 booster. So as you can, or as most of you know, we use rebreathers in our day-to-day diving. So we can use the booster to fill our small tanks. Getting oxygen is quite easy, well, quite easy. We actually have to pre-order the oxygen tanks in Antananarivo, in the capital, in the hospital. And then we have to send them by car 2 days down south, then put them on a pirogue, and then drive them with a pirogue is a boat, by the way, and then drive them with a pirogue up. Last time we made the decision to just put them on the roof of the car, which, yeah, unfortunately the rope maybe was wrapped around the stem a little bit wrong, and so we had a roll-on that almost set everything on fire. So that was not really a perfect idea, so we're gonna maybe change again in the future. In the right hand side picture you can also see that we use also a dirty booster. For the open circuit guys, you know, we only use like 1/3 in and 1/3 out, and we have 1/3 reserve. So it kind of sucks when you're in a place with no compressor and you have all of these like 1/3 full tanks, right? So this is also something that helps us. We can kind of like congregate the tanks a little bit, like replenish them, one tank from another, and that avoids the drive. To give you an idea, from where we are to go to a place that has the smallest compressor the world has ever known is about a 3-hour drive, so 6 hours go and come back. And the compressor is so extremely tiny that it's basically a full day mission. So we try to minimize the amount of times we have to do that as much as possible. A little thing, actually, when you look on the left hand side, right behind me, so this is like the main common room with all the food, and right to the left of it there is a container, like a shipping container, literally metal gated shipping container. So when Pierrot, the owner of the place, moved there, he literally, he's a Swiss national, he put all of the stuff that he had inside a container, shipped the container to Madagascar, drove the container there, and then built a house around the container. So that's pretty badass by itself, I reckon. Good, let's talk a little bit about the people. I don't know how extremely I'm boring you, because most of you only want to see cave. So I'm gonna take this talk a little bit about to gauge the rest. We're gonna come to the caves in a moment, trust me, but I think it is sort of important to understand a little bit the logistics around the cave and not just show beautiful, amazing blue water caves. So it's important to also understand all of the things around it. So as you may or may not know, our team has explored by now, I would say, some 10 caves in the area or in several areas around Madagascar. So, but one of the most badass caves that we have explored or that we are exploring is called Anjanamba. And we would have never had the privilege, and I repeat this, the privilege to be able to dive this cave without the person you can see on the right hand side. He stands right next to Ryan. His name is Chief Fahasor. He unfortunately passed away some years back. But so the story is Ryan, who you can see on the right hand side. Well, you see him both. You see him on the helmet and you see him with a DRSS cap. So Ryan is, besides an ultimate badass, he is a Australian Navy clearance diver, former clearance diver. So, and with this he also has some first aid experience. So we basically rock up, because how do you find caves, right? It's quite easy. Well, it's not easy, but the approach is quite easy. You go from village to village to village and you go like, hey you, where you get your water from? So the first 1 or 2 trips we spend a lot of time hiking through bush in 40-degree heat with some locals with spears and machetes to some ponds of water that sometimes not even an ant would have been. I don't know. Sometimes the places were so small. They're like, you have to understand that we should be able to fit in there also. But so basically, we came to one of those villages, and we come to the chief Fahasor, or to the chief of the village, and he had, because you have to imagine, everything in Madagascar tries to kill you. The vegetation has like this 5-6 centimeter long spines on it. So basically, Chief Fahasor fell and had one of those spines through his knee. Now, the number one way of first aid in Madagascar generally is they take a whole bunch of dirt and just put the dirt on it, and then there's some magic dirt that takes all of the infection away. However, it didn't really seem to work that well, so then Ryan made the decision to clean the dirt off, remove the spine, disinfected it, gave some antibiotics and whatnot, and guess what? A week later, Chief Fahasor, super stoked, felt much better, and then gave us basically the green light to go and see Anjanamba first, and then with a little bit of bribe of coffee and tobacco, we also had the right to explore it. So Chief Fahasor, wherever you are, we are endlessly in your debt. We also named several places inside the cave after him. There's, for example, at the current end of line is Fahasor's chamber, and we dedicated all the movies to him. And to show you also a little bit the local lifestyle, you can see on the left hand side the payment for the payment for healing the guy's knee was those 2 birds. I honestly, I do not know what type of birds they are. If any one of you is a biologist and wants to enlighten me, please go ahead. The funniest part is they're still alive, they still live in our base camp. They never separate 1 meter from each other, and they are very territorial. So sometimes when you try to go into the toilet, which I told you, the toilet is basically like a huge hole in the floor with a wooden cabin around. The funny part is it says WC, which should actually mean water closet. There's just no water. There's just no water around. But sometimes they like attack you, like they don't want you to go into the toilet, and then they like jump on your chest and then bounce off. And it's a quite interesting animal. Another little side story I might share about the toilet. So it's like a 4 or 5 meter deep hole. And we all wear headlights all the time because it's dark as fuck. So one way or another, like I don't know why, but I guess each one of us at some point was curious and had to look down the hole. And there's like a 5-meter boa constrictor living on the bottom of it. Because basically, this opening, this toilet opening, of course, is a great home for bats. And what do boa constrictors eat? Bats. But nowadays, every day, when you sit on the toilet, you just can't, kind of ignore the fact that there might be a giant snake coming up biting you in the ass. But anyway, so that's the story of of Fahasoa and those two birds. Good. Let's continue to talk about the people a little bit more. So again, for them, the caves, like for most civilization, caves are holy places. They have three. I'm gonna fuck this up, Philip. So Philip is gonna give me major shit because Philip obviously is crazy into this religion. But they have basically three main gods, and I only remember the name of one, which is Kukulampi, because it's the funniest sounding name. So every time when we want to go dive, we need to ask, and we really haven't figured this out. We either need to ask the gods for safe passage, or we actually even have to ask permission. Like either, hey, can we go, or hey, make sure we get back out alive. You can see here methods. Actually, his name is Methode. But he sounded like the Method Man of Wu-Tang Clan, so I always call him Method Man. And you can see him with a bottle of rum and a little bit of tobacco, and you can see right at the tree Chief Fahasoa, and they always do like a ceremony. The quite interesting or funny aspect of the ceremony is that they put a little bit of shot of rum onto the tree, but every time we come back from the dive, the rum is empty. Maybe it evaporates, or we haven't really gone to the very bottom of the mystery of the bottle of rum. So basically we're sitting there and we do approximately a 10-15 minute ceremony where the guys like chanting and whatnot, and then we get ready for the dive. Another quite funny thing, where you can see the rebreather, there is actually also a snake in there. So the general thing, or something that we find a lot on caves, is this Boa Constrictors. Why? Because their main source of food is bats. Now, I know bats and eating bats have been a very big subject in current history around planet Earth. So I'm going to share a small story about eating bats in Madagascar. We came one time to a cave called Andakatamimola, and it is a very, very, very big dry cave. I mean, you talk about, and Olivier, our dry cave, is going to give me shit, but I'd say some 50-60 meters down, and it's full of bats. And in fact, you might know it from one of the videos, as it is what Philip refers to the places where they make roaches. So basically, what they do is they go to one side of the cave and they ignite a fire. As you can imagine, the fire drives the bats completely crazy, and all of them want to escape through a quite narrow hole at the entrance of the cave. There, you're gonna have two people that broke, it's like a tree with thorns. So they broke off branches, tree branches with thorns, and just waved them around wildly through the air. So basically what happens is the bats get stuck in the thorns. So then they go with, the branch full of bats to a fire, put it in the fire and do like marshmallow roasting, like bat kebab. So Chinese people are not the only people that eat bats. I think that's the whole truth of the story. They eat a lot of different things, by the way, but we also have people there with like blow tubes. So they shoot birds with darts, and I mean, whatever there is to eat, they eat it 100% sure. Good. A little bit more about the people. Now, I have worked with locals in regards to cave exploration quite in a lot of different places on the planet. Because one thing, it is always the one person, the two person, the team, the people that take all the glory, right? The guys at the end of the line, the guys that set the records. Like, who of you has ever seen a dive magazine with the face of a Sherpa on it, right? In the mountains is the same. Who would actually deserve most glory about alpinism in Himalayas? Most likely the guys that carry all this stuff up. In our case, it is not quite different. Without the guys you can see in this picture, nothing that we would do would be even remotely possible. In fact, in one of the biggest expeditions that we had a maximum of 42 Sherpas the same day. Another thing that makes them very special is usually we would go to a person and say, hey dude, like take one tank, go there and come back. I mean, it's not like we're in a hurry, right? It's going to be like a full day thing. But they will literally deny it. They literally go like, no, I want to take 2 tanks and, you know, give me that one back. In the specific cave that you can see here, it's called Malasamanga. Malasamanga was like our first really unbelievable breakthrough. We had spent 3 weeks of just hiking, having no food or bad food, and nothing worked our way, and it was really pretty horrible. Until we found Malasamanga, where I managed to lay like 2,000 feet, let's say, like 600 meters, 650 meters in 20 minutes through a really narrow winding tunnel. And then this narrow winding tunnel was exploding into one of the most vastest open spaces the world has ever known. I'm going to tell you a bit more about it in a moment I come to the picture, okay? But to give you an idea, so at this cave you actually have to rappel approximately 15 meters down, 15 meters, 50 feet. So by the 3rd time we got there, the locals who have no idea about climbing had already assembled all of the ropes using the same knots. They already knew that the blue bag's Philip, the black bag is mine, and they had already made little camps next to the water where everybody would get dressed. So it is not only people that work to make some money and be happy about it, but their dedication and their attitude towards doing a proper job is really absolutely amazing. Sometimes the places that we go to are pretty far away. So this is, for example, a scouting trip. Not all of the caves that we explore in Madagascar are topside. Some of them involve some dry caving. For example, this one, please do not ask me the name. There's too many names and I simply can't remember all of the different names. But it's also quite funny because we use sometimes quite high-tech backpacks, but they always seem to find a way to not use the backpacks and rather carry stuff on their shoulders. And to give an idea, you see that half of them are like with no shoes. So we walked approximately an hour and a half, and then we did approximately, and again Olivier is going to tell me that I'm wrong, but to me it felt like about, and it's also surveyed, so Olivier would actually know the exact number, but I would say some 80-90 meters of vertical dry caving until we got to the water. And this vertical dry caving had several restrictions. So the 4 people that you see in this picture did this dry caving trip with no helmets, barefoot, carrying the equipment with little pencil helmet lights. So when it comes to being a badass, I don't think there's a lot of people that would actually outdo them. To be perfectly honest, every time when we rock up with like all of the equipment, I feel a little bit embarrassed. Sometimes also a little bit of dry caving. Yes, I know several dry cavers have already told me that they find it funny that we wear helmets underwater, but we do not wear helmets on the surface where they would actually make sense. I can tell you guys in you know, being all respectful and whatnot, I have to inform you the Volcom hat that I'm wearing is actually reinforced. This is a very special Volcom project that me and the guys at Volcom are working on. It is a very, very, very specialized Volcom helmet. It is not for sale. It's still in prototype mode, but in a moment we're gonna go full production. I'm gonna let you know. So this picture you can see is Anchanamba. So there's a little bit of climbing to get down to the water. I specifically like the picture on the left. When they move the scooters down, it almost looks like they give offering to the gods. But yes, so this is really the entrance to maybe one of the most breathtaking caves you can possibly imagine. The average depth of the cave is approximately 16 to 17 meters with a maximum of 24, 25, so it's pretty easy. Water temperature is beautiful 29 degrees centigrade. However, as I told you already, it is right now an 11-kilometer cave system, so using rebreathers definitely is a must from an exploration point of view, specifically because everything is so big, which means to actually check your lead can sometimes take quite a lot of time, because you need to go there, because it looks like a lead, but then it's just like a 50-meter tunnel that ends in dead man's land, and then I have to come back. So rebreathers were definitely the tool of choice. I started off using my Megalodon rebreather, then switched to a different brand of rebreather, which was the JJ, but we're going to come to that in a second. So here, so this is some of the entrances that you can see that take a little bit more work. In fact, the picture on the left where you see me with a KISS t-shirt is that cave where we had to do the vertical climb down to get to the water. The one on the right where you see Ryan pass me a tank is actually a completely other cave in another section. So not all the time can we just hike there and then walk down and there's the water. Sometimes we have to do quite some dry caving to get there. It's usually always full of cockroaches and any other animal that you can imagine, and most of the time you climb through copious amounts of guano, bad shit, which I have been told it's exfoliating and really good for your skin. So this is what I'm hoping for, that like all of this bad guano is going to make me look like I'm 30 years old when I'm 100. Some other things though, you know, there is specific diseases that live within those caves also. We have Histoplasmosis, that can be a disease from that guano. In fact, it's a fungi that then your lung or the immune system attacks in your lungs. And amongst many others, I did have a pretty gnarly problem with parasites in Zanzibar, which I'm going to tell you when I do the Zanzibar talk, okay? But as you can see, quite some climbing to get to the water. And the picture on the left is something a little bit special to me. So again, you know, we talk about 70, 80 meters of vertical climbing, passing several restrictions. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do in the future, because normally I need to cut those talks to like 40 minutes, which is why I put as little pictures as possible, I guess. With you guys, if I can do like an hour and a little bit, I could put more pictures. But so there's several restrictions to get to the water. So this was the very first time that I did my virgin dive, or the first dive ever in a cave system. You know, so when the cave was virgin and we had to climb there and get there, and my first ever dive that I did, believe it or not, was actually in a rebreather. You can see that picture on the left. Because switching to the Sidewinder was the first time gave me the first time the possibility to have a rebreather that is so unbelievable light and easy to transport. It's 6 kilos when it's empty. That literally, you can see it right behind me actually, that literally bringing the rebreather or going open circuit felt approximately the same. Now, of course, all of you are going to ask, Patrick, why are you wearing a dry suit? And why are you wearing a wetsuit on the right hand side? Now, yes, the first trips that I did to Madagascar was in a wetsuit. The water temperature, 29 degrees centigrade, is definitely feasible to be in a wetsuit. And yes, I know I can install a P-valve in my wetsuit. I just still don't like it. I learned how to dive when I was 12 years old in a lake in Austria, in a dry suit, and when I moved to Egypt, I was one of the first persons to dive dry suit there throughout all the winter. I'm just a dry suit person, and I'm not gonna leave it. I don't like my skin to be in the water for 7 or 8 hours. I don't like to pee myself for 7 or 8 hours, so I'm just a dry suit person. Another thing that's quite cool about the Sidewinder, because of the sorb and everything, I don't really need much weight even with the dry suit. And as you can imagine, as the water temperature is really quite warm, I have hardly any undergarment. And you can see, so this is one of the prototypes of the Seal dry suit, where we spent the last 3 years finding this really specific material that is rugged enough to survive puncture wounds, yet doesn't have no friction. So if you slide through restriction, the friction doesn't cause any holes. But so basically this is where you can see where I can get dressed here on the left hand side. On the right hand side, this is actually the cave where they do this whole thing with the bats. This is under Katamivola. And as you can see, the watercolor is absolutely amazing. It looks like you're standing in a pile of diarrhea. And another thing that's really nice is because as cave divers, we are like test breathing our regulators, right? So as you can imagine, putting your face into this water and then switching from one regulator to the next. And as you do this switch, the carcass of a dead bat floats by with like maggots and cockroaches coming in and out of it, is always something really special and makes you feel that being a cave explorer is really amazing calling with a lot of prestige to it. But, so remember this right-hand picture, okay? The dirty water. Remember, we also had to hike. We did some dry caving there, full of bats, full of cockroaches. Basically, the worst possible place you can imagine on Earth. And then sometimes we have entrances like this one. An entrance where we simply walk down to the water and we see this amazing, beautiful open space with incredible visibility. When you look inside the water, you might spot some little white spots. Now these white spots are blind cavefish. Now most cave divers know blind cavefishes, but if I would ask you how many blind cavefishes have you seen in your entire life, even people that live in Mexico would be like, maybe like 3 or 4 a year. Here you come to the water start and you're gonna see like maybe 70. That is because there is no natural enemies of these fish, so it's actually quite interesting. Another cool story, you know, we work with a lot of scientists. In fact, one time when we were there, we had 32 scientists, so way more scientists than actual divers. And there's another cave critter that lives there that is called amphipod. Now, an amphipod is also transparent, and there they actually bite you quite heavily, drink your blood, turn red, curl, and then fall off you. So we asked the biologists, hey biologists, so these isopods or these amphipods, like when they bite you, like what do they usually eat if we're like the only people around? Like, do they eat this white cavefish? And the biologist said, nah, look at the size of it. It would need a food source much bigger than the blind cavefish. Now the question is, the blind cavefish is most definitely the biggest fish that I have seen in those caves. So for a split moment, all of us kind of looked at each other, and we had like this moment. I don't know if you've seen the movie Alien 2, when they walk through this abandoned factory, and then like left, right, and center, the aliens can like bend down and eat all of them. So when you swim through a cave that has like an 80-meter wide tunnel that's 40 meters tall, and with your 12-watt light you can hardly illuminate the wall, some similar feeling comes up in your stomach. By the way, I have a video walking down that stair. I have a video of literally a 4-5 meter python that literally just out in nature climbs up the stairs there. It's absolutely crazy. Good. So finally, I guess you're like, oh Jesus Christ, Patrick, stop talking about Madagascar and show us some cave pictures. So from all these obstacles that I talked about, you know, the sitting 5 hours on the back of a Toyota 4Runner with leather seats, no air condition and no suspension, to eating fish every single day of my life, and everybody that knows me knows I hate fish with a passion. And they're like, even when you eat, for example, the shrimp, they don't clean it. So when you eat the shrimp, you taste the sand. Yeah, it's just horrendous. But then you get to see something like this. And the other funny part about the caves there is they're so different from each other. For example, this one is Malasamanga. So Malasamanga used to have an unbelievable, insanely massive bat colony in it. So that means when you swim along the floor, there is billions and billions and billions and billions of bat bones. So based on all their shit, their guano, all their shit, it stained the water. We call this tannic acid. Therefore, a lot of this cave is very, 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 very dark. The lights that we carry in this picture are 40,000 lumen. I don't know if any one of you can even fathom how strong this light is, but it is so light that it needs a handle. You can actually not hold it because it becomes so hot that literally the water above it starts to make a thermocline. And well, now imagine, when we started to explore this cave, we had 12 watt lights. And now you're trying to swim down this tunnel, trying to find a way on. I'm going to come to another story in a split second on how we came to one of those big tunnels. Besides those really, really, really massive tunnels, remember the picture I showed you just a couple of moments ago, where I was standing with the helmet in a wetsuit and the water was like all like diarrhea colored? This is the cave right underneath it. So this is also called Anlakatomiwola. And it has not only unbelievable formation, it also has soda straws. So these are like the baby stalactites. So it basically looks like a straw, just it's made out of calcite, right? It is such an intricate cave, and you have to be so careful with moving, because no matter how careful your fin movement is, or even back then when we explored it open circuit, just exhaling made formations fall down, and it literally sounded like you would just crush like $1,000 worth champagne glasses. But the cave is really unbelievably amazing. Little side story to that. So this cave is in the middle of nowhere. When we got back to use salmon rebreathers, we decided to give this one another crack. So we arrived to this place, and then suddenly on the footpath, because it's a quite far walk to get there, on the footpath we meet people. Now this by itself is fairly strange because there are no people there. So then there's more people and more people. So at some time we asked the people, like we have a translator, so we speak French to him and then he speaks to the, what are those people doing here? And the guy goes like, oh, we are diving. And we're like, no, dude, what do you mean you're diving? Yeah, we're diving here. I'm like, so is it the French? Is it the Germans? Like, no, it's locals. Now you need to understand, all of the dive equipment that I showed you in the picture, we brought that. When we did the first trip, that was Philip and I, we actually took some tanks from the university in Antananarivo, which literally was 6 aluminum tanks made in China that had different sizes. I have never seen something like that before, with one of them having 14 parts per million of CO. Neither one of us was really sure on how long we can breathe 14 parts per million CO before we die, but it was a bit nerve-wracking. So how in the world suddenly were there local divers doing cave exploration there? So we got a bit curious. When we arrived closer to the cave, we realized that they had cut down a soccer-sized field of bush, flattened it completely out. And they had solar panels outside with cables going down into the dry cave section. So we're like, what the fuck is happening here? And we're like, hey, what are you doing? And they go like, well, we're looking for mercury. And I'm like, mercury in French. And I'm like, but for me in German it's quecksilver. And I'm like, well, mercury. And I'm like, do they talk about the liquid metal? And I was like, yeah. But have you ever seen fucking mercury in a cave? No. So we asked him again, but are you sure there's mercury? Yeah. It's ancient. It's stuck to the ceilings. And I'm like, but hang on, mercury, should that not be heavy? So we kind of like looking at each other, and then we're like, what is the football field for? No, but that's for the helicopter. Because once, we transport all the mercury out, the helicopter needs to pick it up. So this is clearly a quite high profile financial project going on. So we go down, there's a bunch of people down, and you have like these three, I'd say mid-20, late 20 locals, ripped wetsuits, international first stages, the same lights with the lights and condoms. And yeah, so basically they go like, well, we're looking for mercury here. Okay, great. So, and then it was funny because it's a quite deep cave, huh? So we ended up doing decompression. One of them goes down, pulls me on my neck, like tries to pull me to the surface, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like give me thumbs up, like, yeah, cool, man. So I'm like, no, dude, I still have to stay here half an hour. Fuck off. And so long story short, but they are generally a little bit pissed with us because Madagascar has a really, really long history of getting everything stolen from them, specifically like artifacts and stuff like that. So they clearly do not really welcome our presence. They even said to our guide or to our translator why he would bring tourists here. So anyway, long story short, and then Ryan, our Australian friend that lives here, has a bit of a mocky humor. So we use a survey tool, which I'm going to show you in a split second. So I take the survey tool out of my pocket, and then Ryan was like, "Hey Patrick, can you just give me the mercury detector?" And then the translator goes like, "Dude, don't make jokes about the fucking." But they literally might just fucking kill us. So that was quite interesting. So long story short, much later, we found out that they basically had seen our videos on YouTube. And when you look on the YouTube videos, our gas pockets or our gas bubbles, when they go to the ceiling and they congregate there, it kind of like looks like a mirror. So it kind of like looks like mercury. So they literally went through all that trouble based on a YouTube video. So that's Madagascar for you, basically. And so this was exactly in this cave also. Other things that are really special, and I think more special than any other cave that I've found or that I've been part on the exploration project anywhere in the world, is the extreme amount of artifacts that we find, specifically very, very, very old artifacts like this horned Nile crocodile. I don't know if in your country the BBC documentary already aired, but our team shot a BBC piece. I think it's called Paradise Islands or something like that. And it has a small 2-3 minute segment that actually Philip Lehman shot, and Ryan and I are, and Victoria is also in the image. Which, truth be told, I had the great luck to be on the cover of National Geographic by accident, hanging from a rope somewhere in the back. But being inside a video with like a David Attenborough voiceover, it was not David Attenborough unfortunately, but like very similar voice, was really pretty cool thing. But in any way, shape or form, unfortunately BBC is very interested in bones and not interested at all in the world's most amazing power caves. But so we got to shoot heaps of those bones. Now, specifically in this cave, we have a lot of crocodile, this is a horned Nile crocodile. We also found Speleoproctor, so we found Fusa, which is like a predatory cat, giant version of it. We found heaps of snakes, obviously lots and lots of bats, and giant lemur. Now, most of you know lemur from that television movie thing of Madagascar. It's basically the Madagascar domestic monkey with the rings on his tails, but we found also the giant version. So that is Megalodopus, it's called. So it was a lemur that was 3 meter, 15 foot tall, and we managed to find a skull, which is just really humongous. Now, you might think that this was like the best findings of bones we had, but in fact, one time we had to hike out with 3 guys, spears and machetes and all, and we come to a place. So, Madagascar has this massive depression, so it's a 30 meter diameter, or like actually 100 meter diameter hole in the floor, and it's 30 meters down. Not rappelling, you can kind of like walk down the sides. And it's a little puddle of water, and then I put on my Speedos, put my light or the battery in my Speedos, have the light in my hand, and we use a technique called power snorkeling. Now, whenever it is extremely difficult to get all of your dive gear to the dive site, then usually we try to find out, is it worthwhile bringing all the equipment or isn't it? So basically I walked down, Speedos, mask, no fins. I got no reel, just a light, and I just want to poke a little bit underwater and see if there is going passage, yes or no. So I go along the ceiling, so I have one hand on the ceiling, I have a short necklace regulator, necklace around, and I have like the light and the tank in my right hand, and the left hand kind of like pushes off the ceiling. And you can imagine this exactly like a lake. So you have the lake plants, and you have like this dark brown lake sediment. Anybody that ever dove in a lake, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And as I go down, these avalanches of lake sediment are coming down. So, my whole bravery starts to go less and less, and I see a tree stuck in the ceiling. Now, all of you that have been diving in Angelita here in Mexico, or have been diving in any European lake with trees in it, or in the pit maybe, you know that when trees are long enough in water, they super saturate with water and then get heavy, and then they sink, and then they usually turn black many times, and then often enough they grow like a white fungi on it. So basically I'm still going down the slope, and I see like this corner to the right, and I think there might be some cave there, and basically now I'm already like, there's like these heaps of avalanches of like bad visibility, and I already see the headline in the Salzburger Nachrichten, which is like my home newspaper in Austria, that says Austrian cave explorer drowned in Africa in Speedos, wearing no fins and not having a guideline to the surface. So I thought my parents would be really quite upset about that news. So I decided to turn around at that moment. As I turn around, I kind of think about this tree, right? Why would the tree be stuck in the ceiling when it's quite normal that once the tree is heavy, it is going to be on the floor? So as I turn around, I can see that there is purple Nike shorts in the tree. So then I'm like, that's weird. So I'm a bit closer, and then I realized that at the end of the shorts there is a knee, and then a foot, and then a muscle, and I'm like, okay, hey, this is not a tree. This is a drowned black villager with white fungi on him. Now, obviously, I stayed completely calm and dropped the light and the tank only by accident, and then double chest stroke swam back to the surface. Once I came to the surface, there was Ryan first, and Ryan was, so does he go? And I was like, well, there is a dead guy stuck to the ceiling. And I'm like, okay. And then Philip came on. Philip is like, yo, does it go? And I'm like, well, there is a dead guy stuck to the ceiling. Ah, okay. No, not okay. Dead person, decomposing, stuck to the ceiling. And then Ryan was like, wow, dude, we have to tell him. Because, you know, that's somebody's father, that's somebody's brother, like, dude, we have to tell him. And then Philip was like, yeah, what if they have killed him? And I'm like, that's a really interesting point right there. So then we asked the translator. So we say to the translator, hey dude, I found a dead guy. Should we tell the villagers or not? And then he said, oof, I don't know, man. Now, when the local translator is not 100% sure if you should tell the people that you found a dead guy, it becomes a quite tense situation. However, 5 seconds later, of course, the guys realize that we have a quite heated debate, right? And they can see my face and that I'm definitely not a happy camper. And they have seen me go in and out of caves 48 times in the last 5 days. So then later we found out that it was a young villager that brought the cebu, which is like a local cow, that he brought the cows out to get water for them and then never came back. So that was in February and I found him in March. Because there's so much hydrogen sulfate in the water, there's very little oxygen, so that's why the body was actually quite kept good together, unless you would actually retrieve it from the water to the surface. Which obviously was the next request. So they were like, so Patrick, can you please bring the body out? And I'm like, well, we don't have body bags. We have no way of transporting it. It will most likely fall apart once I touch it. And even if I would get it to the surface, I still need, or we need to bring it 30 meters up out of the depression, then put it on a ox cart, and then drive it 4 hours back to the village at 40 degrees sun. So I would say this might not be the easiest job to do, considering we have 0 tools to pull it off. And just to show you a little bit about the people, 2 seconds later they walked over and they said, you know, Patrick, with the translator, if you would help us get the body out, we would actually give you a cebu. Now, to give you an idea, a cebu, a full-blown cow, for them is the value of a car. So this was clearly something extremely important to them for closure. So now you're trying to explain the ins and outs of decomposition to people that don't know how to read and write. So it was definitely quite a bit of an interesting story. And funny enough, not the last dead person that we found or that I found. That seems to be a little bit of a thing going on. I found also a dead person on the last trip we went there, which Ryan and I then had the extreme pleasure of being in a full-on voodoo ritual. But I guess that's I can tell you that story at a different time. Good. Coming back to the cave then. So remember when I told you about all of this bats that used to live in the cave, and then all of their bat guano turned everything black. So I think this is really, really a very fitting, a very great picture to illustrate that. You can see how unbelievable black this tunnel is, and also gives you a little bit of feeling about size. right? It's completely pitch black. The size is breathtaking. And to give you also about a little bit of feeling how it was for us to explore it. We talk about, so here's the same thing, very powerful video light. We explored that with 12 watt LED lights in open circuit. In this specific tunnel, the depth is 32 meters, 110 feet. So you're on quite a bit of time pressure because every moment you stay, you're losing time to explore. You don't really see very far. And all in all, the cave is just intimidating as fuck. Now, I don't care who you are, most badass cave diver on the world, trust me when I tell you, it's pretty intimidating. Specifically, the only line that we had brought, which in retrospect might have been not the smartest move, being that it's just what we use in Mexico, we decided to go with a twisted gauge 18 line, which is quite thin line. So yeah, trying to do a lost line search in this place, trying to find a gauge 18 line would be quite interesting. So this specific tunnel, for example, is easily like 20-30 meters tall. Very, very, very big contrast to the caves that are further up in the north. So this is Anjanamba. This is a place that we call the Love Tunnel. The reason why we call it the Love Tunnel, if you look at the very end, you can see like a heart-shaped opening. So basically, right now we are penetrating the Love Tunnel, which is always funner with a scooter. Another thing that is really amazing for me about the tunnel itself. So all the floor that you can see is petrified clay. So you can literally feel and see how all of that water with all that material used to run through there before it dried out, then became completely dry and then flooded basically later. The water is also specifically very blue, as you can see. And we were told by French scientists that this has to do with blue night. I can't really remember the chemical that's in the water there. I want to put your attention a little bit to the top. If you look at the heart-shaped opening, okay, point your finger at it. Then go straight up approximately 2 centimeters. And then tell me you don't see 2 eyes and a mouth. Maybe my imagination is way crazier than yours, but one of the reasons why we named the movie series that we made about the caves there, Spirits of the Cave, is because many times when we cruise through those caves, it just constantly seems like something or somebody's looking back at you. So that makes it really quite interesting. Back to Malasamanga, you can see instantly clear again, this crazy difference in color. And this is a really specific place. This is the exit of a place called Ryan's Chamber. So when we did the first trip and we didn't find absolutely nothing except suffering and pain for 3 weeks, 3 days before leaving, Philip had food poisoning. And we only had one place left to check, and that was that one. It was 1 hour hike, 15 meter rappel, where I almost got annihilated by killer bees. I'm basically hanging 1.5 meters in front of a beehive. It was really very, very amazing experience. I came down to the bottom, walked all the way around the sinkhole, didn't find nothing until I found a very small puddle of water. I still had the memory of the dead guy, so I wasn't really super uber keen to dive it, to be perfectly honest. But anyways, asked the Sherpas to bring my tanks down, got dressed, and then told you, put 2,000 feet of line in about 20 minutes, and then ended in a pretty big circular room that we decided to name Ryan's Chamber. First of all, it's really funny to say to Ryan that I penetrated his chamber, And then second, because it's just an honor to him, because without him, none of this would have happened. So again, Mr. Ryan Dart, able seaman, without you, none of this would have been possible. And you know how thankful I am. So basically, at this point, I've really, for me, one of the greatest pleasures is always to give my friends the real, let them go crazy, and then I do the survey behind them, and we experience the exploration together. So when we came to this, so this is literally one day before leaving, we GoPro the beginning of it, and then Philip ties him to the end of the line, and swims off, and I survey behind him. And I realize that he goes in a circle, in a circle, in a circle, and the fear is growing and growing, and I'm like, dude, you know, we're just going in a circle here, so this is not going to go very good. And then suddenly the light is gone, and that was approximately exactly at this place. So right behind me, actually the lighting is done here by Hans Kaspersets. Right behind me, right behind that picture, suddenly the floor is gone. There is no more floor. The floor suddenly drops from 25 meters down to about 40. The walls on either end are approximately 100 meters away from each other, and the ceiling is another at least 15 meters higher. So when Philip laid the original line, he literally had the feeling that he would go completely into outer space with no reference of floor, ceiling, or walls. And it ended up making him even a bit scared, so he started to drift with his line more and more and more and more and more to the right. From all of the memories that I made in my life, when he made this tie-off, he actually swam back. He grabbed me on my head and then shook my head like a crazy person. And we just yelled at each other. For years we had this amazing dream, this fascination with finding the biggest, most beautifulest cave in the world. And it literally felt like we had finally arrived exactly at that spot. To give you an idea, for cave mapping, we usually have a knot every 10 feet on the line to help us measuring distance from one tie-off to the next. And if you have really going cave, you would have like 30-foot shots, 40-foot shots. Because remember, to be a shot, it needs to be perfectly straight because we use a compass to measure it. So you cannot make a shot longer than what you can have a perfectly straight line. So we would think that a 30-40-foot shot would be really going cave. This shot has 198 knots. And yes, you might have imagined, at 150 something, Philip rocks up, shakes my head, I completely forget the number, and I have to start from the beginning. Switching back, I realized that I'm talking already since way too long. I hope I'm not boring you too much, and I guess some of you in Europe already want to go to bed. So I'm going to try to wrap this up, and I'm going to choose maybe a little bit of a better time, or try to do shorter presentations. But as you realize, I really enjoy talking about cave diving and the adventures we have there. So here we are back, for example, at this really beautiful image of Anchenamba with a heart-shaped tunnel. And some other important information. So, as you can imagine, until this point, I think we have mapped and we have explored and mapped, I would say 11, 3, 14 to something like 18 kilometers of cave. And it would have been completely impossible to do 18 kilometers of cave in a very limited amount of time that we have there, that is mixed between a lot of surfing. I'm not gonna lie, we surf a lot. Also scouting, we need to go to new villages, establish a relationship with the landowners, or with the people that run the place. Usually they tell us we have to come back 3 or 4 days later, so nothing there works. Yeah, the saying TIA, this is Africa, definitely applies to Madagascar. So what we did would have never been possible without absolutely advanced technology, such as scooters and rebreathers. But even more than that, an unbelievable, ingenious device called MNemo, which you can see me holding in my hand right here. And it makes me even more proud that the inventor of this very machine is a very close friend of mine, Sebastian Kieser, that you can also find here on Facebook. And the program that you can see on my computer on the right hand side is called Arian's Line. Both of those things you can find on Facebook. MNemo does not only work to explore cave, you can make crazy maps of shipwrecks and of a million other things, and it's so absolutely easy to use that my 10-year-old nephew can do that. You swipe along that machine on the line, come from the water, connect it to your computer, press the enter button, and boom, you have the map in one go. Remember one thing, if you explore and you lay line and you do not map and survey it, you did not explore. You literally took a whole bunch of nylon garbage and placed it inside a cave. There is no glory, there is nothing. As far as you may be concerned, you swim in a circle for 1 hour, okay? So please, unless you have the skill of actual surveying and producing a map, don't go there. And nowadays it was made so unbelievable simple for you by using Arian's Line with MNemo. And no, I'm not getting any sponsorship, any money from the commercial, but I can tell you it is the most amazing thing ever. Good, a little bit more about the equipment that we use, and I'm going to do a specific subject on that because I don't want to keep you for way too much more time. But why is it that we change? Necessity is the mother of invention. So I have used anything, and specifically I see now, big rebreathers come back where we use 50 cubic foot to 7 liter tanks back mounted, and then a small oxygen tank. Which is really an extremely awesome setup, and I've dived like that for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. And I can tell you also, because there was some controversy on Facebook also, this is not possible to use this for exploration. I think Anton at some time had some fight with JP about no, but you can't use this for exploration. The GE setup, as he called it, when really it is quite older than how long GE is using it. But I can assure you that I have explored with the right hand setup. I've explored caves in 4 different countries of the planet to a maximum depth of 120 meters and unbelievable distances. So it is most definitely possible to use this for exploration. The main drawback is most of my machines that were set up like that were weighing something between 50 and 60 kilos. So if I wasn't that lucky of having always people to carry my equipment, I would most likely have given up on the approach of using this rebreather a long time ago. Much earlier into my life came the invention of Mike Young from KISS Rebreathers. I want to give a specific shout out to Kim and Lynette, the 2 girls that work at KISS that make my life so much easier. But basically, they came up with a really amazing rebreather called Sidewinder. A good friend of mine, Ed Sorensen, was the person to get me to look at it. I have to admit, and most people know, I already made that statement on Facebook. I thought at the beginning it looked horrible, and then Philip got me to it. And right now, I would not change it for anything else. I guess about 99% of all of the diving that I do is on the Sidewinder. And now the beautiful time off of coronavirus helps me also to produce a dual unit, which should be pretty cool. But the reason why we switched to the Sidewinder is quite easy to see on the 2 pictures. I think I have pushed the JJ or also the Megalodon respectively as hard as I could. To give you an idea, the picture on the right, we picked this JJ up in Paris on the way to Madagascar. So this rebreather has 12 dives on it. It's an amazing piece of equipment, and I'm unbelievably grateful for Jan for the work that he does. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of equipment, and anybody that owns a JJ should be more than happy. But ultimately, for what we are doing, it just reached its limitations in regards to size. One other specific thing that I can tell you is when a rebreather has a certain weight, it becomes sensitive. Meaning, if I move my left shoulder a bit down, my right shoulder a bit down, if I pick something up, if I look down, all of this weight is going to shift on my body. With the weight shifting on my body, the gas in my dry suit, the gas in the wing, all of this is shifting as well, right? So if you dive in very shallow water, which most rebreather divers don't do, and you don't want to touch anything because you're going to create a complete and utter silt out, this becomes quite challenging for your brain. I've been personally diving rebreathers for quite some time. So if something is difficult for me, I would just consider it to be difficult for quite some people because I do it a lot on top of it. So to give you an idea, when I would do 6-7 hour dives on the JJ and I would climb back up to the car and we would drive back, remember how the roads are. It's maximum speed 20 kilometers per hour, it's 4x4, and you get shaken in ways that you never imagined you could. In fact, I usually have a neck brace, not a specific neck brace, it's my airplane neck brace, but I usually have a neck brace around my neck for this trip, and I put the seatbelt on so I don't get catapulted into the ceiling. After 6-7 hour dives, I would literally be unconsciously passed out asleep all the drive back to the base camp, because being for 6-7 hours so highly focused on every move that I do really put my concentration to its limits. And before you ask, no, decompression would not be the cause. We talk about a 15-meter dive with a PO2 of 1.0 above. This time on the sidewind, I even did some dives that were a little bit longer. I had none of this feeling. Simply because the rebreather weighs absolutely nothing. The feeling of diving it is like diving open circuit side mount, just without the bubbles. So this machine has really opened completely new gateways to us. One of which I'm going to show you right now. So basically here you see us with the full equipment just before departing. So you see that Anjanamba has like this quite bigger open water area. It's not very deep, but it's actually really quite nice to get dressed and start your dive. So you have Philip Lehman on the right and you have me on the left. As you can see on the bottom of the glasses of Philip, there's like magnifying parts, which gives him his well-earned name, Mr. Magoo. However, one thing that I need to say, absolutely nothing that we do would be possible without Philip Lehman. He is an absolute perfectionist. He is unbelievably driven. I never saw him giving up. I never heard him. One of the things that makes exploring or doing trips like this with him so priceless is that he absolutely never complains. And you know how people say, you know, traveling with somebody really gets you to know that person. Why? Because everybody, when they start traveling, become a little bitch. You know, a little bit like, yeah, the food is this, the color is there, it's too hot, it's too cold. And this is one of the things that make the team specifically, like what I feel about Philip, makes our team work so well. We just absolutely never complain ever about anything. No matter how shit the situation is, we just keep on rolling. And I think this is really unbelievably important for an exploration team. And yeah, you know, I'm extremely grateful to Philip for being my exploration partner, and the amount of things that I was allowed to experience together with him on the water is enough for 10 lifetimes. So I'm gonna just let that sink in for a second. So this is some of the paths that we have found on our last expedition. So one of the things that you can clearly see, the blue, and I can assure you, no, there is no filter. The water literally has this unbelievable blue color. And besides that, the walls are so white. So you have this completely white walls, complete blue water, and this light brown clay floor is absolutely amazing. And the cave doesn't really change. The thing is, I mean, it's definitely much smaller tunnel-wise as Malasamanga is, but having said that, it's still really quite big. Meaning you need to do a lot of swimming. It is also a lot of collapses, which means you can swim around, it's walled out, and then you find like this really small hole, squeeze through, and suddenly it's like an explosion of cave again. So it is something very complex, very time consuming, very difficult to explore to begin with. Remember, although there's definitely was flow at some point, it is a very dendritic cave. There's not a lot of elevation, and as there was not a lot of elevation, water didn't have a lot of hydrostatic pressure going into one direction. So water had always to look for the way of least resistance in this cave, so it's very dendritic cave. But yeah, I mean, just for me, the colors, the shape of the cave is absolutely mind-numbingly beautiful. Here you can see us on one of the setup dives. You can see that because I carry an additional stage to my normal 2 side mount bailouts. And this is what happened every time we progressed further and further into the cave system. We would install further scooters and further tanks to make our exploration, our diving as safe as possible. I wouldn't always say that we need those things, and I would actually say that we're quite conservative, but as you know, cave diving is really quite, I would say it's 80% mental. So just knowing that you don't have a far distance to your next tank, or that you don't have a far distance to the next scooter, definitely helps you to push a little harder, be a bit more comfortable, something like that. And then sometimes you also get like this more like fracture depicted caves. As you can see, we're not a very big team for pictures. Something that is very specific also to mention. This year when we went exploring, we just encountered the best surf conditions ever. So I have to be honest with you, the 1 month that we stayed there, the first 7 days, we didn't even touch the water. We just went surfing, which means that we spent most of the 3 weeks and we just tried to get some pictures going for people also to see what we're doing. But a lot of the pictures that were taken and the entire video that was taken was literally simply on the way to end of line, or on the way to a end of line to go exploring there. And then it turns out again into some completely crazy power tunnel. And this is the thing, you know, whenever you come from like a small, squeezy little type of cave and you go like, there's no way, you know, this is the end of the cave, and you get a bit sad. And then you push through, and then there's this massive explosion. It's completely ridiculous. And now, remember when we talked about the spirits of the cave? Point your finger at the diver on the right, which happens to be me. Then go to your 3 o'clock position, and then tell me you don't see a big open mouth with 2 eyes. Looks a little bit like in that first Mummy movie, no? And I'm telling you, you have faces like this anywhere and everywhere you go. The erosion in this place just seemed to carve out the weirdest faces and objects. When I made the PowerPoint presentation, I couldn't really decide what pictures I like, so I guess by now I'm showing you too many pictures. but yeah, it's pretty good pictures. Some of the places have almost no sediment, as you can see here, or also like this completely petrified clay, so you can actually pick it up and it feels like a stone, and only when you squish it you can realize that it is clay and it falls into bits and pieces. This is really one of my, I don't even know why this is one of my favorite pictures, but I really like this picture a lot. Okay, and this then just so happens always to be one of the most exciting moments of the day. As I told you, if you just go to a place and you lay line but you don't come back with a map, that means absolutely nothing. So one of the biggest thrills or biggest suspenses we have is always knowing, hey, where did we go? Of course you have your compass heading, you know if you went north, you know if you went south, east or west, but like where did I exactly go? And why is this such a specific special picture and such a specific special moment? On the last trip, something pretty, for me personally, horrifying happened. As you know, I'm teaching cave diving, and I told you that at the beginning of the presentation. Teaching is an absolute passion of mine. But also my standards of teaching are very, very, very high because I consider cave diving potentially to be quite dangerous. Why? Because I have been in several body recoveries. And the one thing that I can tell you when you see somebody who has drowned in a cave, even just underwater, but if you see somebody that has drowned, their facial expression, their fingernails often are all things that are really not pretty. So every time that I'm teaching cave diving, I'm trying to produce divers that won't ever go down that path and happen to be one of those people. When I teach instructors and an instructor asks me, Patrick, I'm not sure, should I certify this person or should I not certify this person? I make a very easy example. I always use my nephew for it because most of my staff knows my nephew not personally, but they know how much I touched on to my nephew. And I said, very simple. The person that you are thinking about certifying, would you let that person dive with one of your family members? Ideally somebody that you're so attached to, like your nephew. If your answer is not quite easily yes, I would have no problem this diver to dive with my nephew, then you shouldn't be certifying this person, right? Because they will dive with somebody's nephew, with somebody's father, with somebody's son. So you might say that my expectations in my divers or my training is quite rigorous, and maybe some would say that it is a bit hard. So I just happened to have a dive student many months before, and for whatever reason, this person was not, or basically we tried only 2 days really, but in those 2 days we realized that the skill level was just not up to the task. I made specifically that decision when the diver lost control of buoyancy, landed on top of the dive partner, and then pushed both of them into the floor, created bad visibility, which is very little bad visibility there because it's Taj Mahal, it's a training site. But it just showed that that person needed more work on basic skill. Long story short, months has passed and months has passed and months has passed with some small threats of, if you don't give me back the money, I'm gonna go public. But I'm like, dude, I spent 2 full days with you. You paid the time, right? So, in any way, shape or form, I arrive in Madagascar where everybody knows that I have limited internet. Usually it was the first time we actually had good internet. And I start my phone and I get like millions of messages from friends and family that basically this person had written a PDF about me, posted it on Facebook, and absolutely destroyed me in any way, shape, form possible. Now, to tell you that I was not devastated would be an understatement. Considering, first of all, this is really my passion. But second also, and I also consider that I go the extra way. I mean, I showed that person like a yoga position on how to stretch the back muscles more because I emphasized with him working on the computer all day and not creating the body tension and blah, blah, blah. So I think that I'm going the extra mile, and he is that person that just tells me that everything that I did was complete bullshit. So in any way, shape or form, I was really upset, and of course I'm really worried about losing my job or that people are not going to come back to train with me. Which brings in Philip Lehman. Philip Lehman says, so I tell Philip the story on breakfast, and Philip says, awesome! If nobody will ever book you ever for diving again, you will have so much more time to go exploring. So as you can see, it only takes Philip always to put a smile on my face. long story short, so me and Philip went off exploring that day to this new area that we had found. I mean, at this moment, we think it's pretty much game over, and we're not going to find anything anymore, and we're a little bit upset. Not that upset, because the surfing was really good. But I'm going to try something. I don't really know if you can see my mouse, but if you can see my mouse, because obviously there's two mouses, but the one that is moving, or maybe it's not moving, but basically in the right upper corner you see something like a green set with a red line before. Okay, I'm trying to make a circle around it. So there's a red line followed by a green line, then a little green line, and then a green set, and then a white line coming from it. It's all on the right upper corner. Now, each one of the different colors means this is a different line. Okay, so you can imagine this like being a giant collapse. Imagine a 3-story building that has basically, so somebody took a 3-story building, say 20 meters by 20 meters, empty 3-story building, and just filled it with pickup trucks. So this is the type, how this looks like. It's a huge boulder collapse full of small holes where you can push between one boulder and the other, and it's full of sediment, so serviceability almost instant. Literally, it would have been completely impossible to pass this with any back-mounted rebreather, and it's pretty far in the cave also. I think just to get there was approximately, honestly, if I give you a right number, I would be lying. Let me have a look at the map. Oh yeah, it is pretty far away actually. If you look on the map on the left, on the very left, but upper, you see like a yellow star. That is the entrance. And if you go completely down, you see all of those lines that I have amplified on the right-hand side of the picture. So I would say it's at least about an hour on the trigger, maybe 1 hour, 10 minutes of scootering. The current ends of lines are about 8,000-9,000 feet in. I don't really remember the number either. But so we're in this collapse. And so we pass through that hole, it only goes for about a couple of meters, and we cut it and we come back and we make another T and we go there, that doesn't go, we cut it and we come back, and this happens for like in 2 hours. At some point, Philip is like, dude, fuck you, fuck this doesn't go anywhere, let's go somewhere else. But for whatever reason, this whole thing, I could not conceive to come home empty-handed that day where my reputation and my future was completely and utterly destroyed. So I was like, the only good thing that has to happen today is I need to come back with an empty wheel. So we come back to a T, and Philip turns down to the right and then down to the right again. So he comes around a collapse. As I follow him, I find a restriction on my right-hand side, but that restriction points in the same direction as where Philip is going, just deeper. So we're basically going in the exact opposite direction. We want to go south, but the restriction goes to the north. Any day of the week, any day of my life, I would have been like, this is a complete and utter waste of time. There's no way. This makes no sense to even go through that. This is a rookie thing to do, to go through a restriction knowing that absolutely you're going the same in the wrong direction anyways. But anyways, I went. And so as I laid a line through the restriction, I literally imagined that I'm going to see Philip underneath me. Why? Because we're going the same direction, just in different depths. I pass through the restriction, it turns right again, there's still no Philip. It goes into a bedding plane that's decorated. There's usually no decoration there. And I keep on going, and suddenly it's just fucking massive power room. The feeling you get is absolutely impossible to explain in words. I literally had to take the reel, lock it, put it on the floor, ball my hands into fists, and I screamed so loud into my rebreather because I could just not imagine that we literally just found the fucking way on. Usually I would just go, but I wanted to celebrate that with Philip. So I actually went back, surveying back. I found Philip right at the restriction, where it realized obviously that I was not there. Found Philip at the restriction, and he looks at me now like, dude, it's exploding behind me. Philip pushes through the restriction, I keep on surveying, and then the rest is history. Philip finished that line. And then we did a couple of more consecutive days there, which ended up with finding Fahasor's chamber, which is one of the biggest rooms and most decorated rooms that Anchenamba has until today. So out of something really unbelievably bad came something unbelievably good. Good, that was already it. I can't believe how long this was. I'm so sorry. I think I really should have cut that down to 1 hour. But it's so weird, right? I did the Madagascar talk, I don't know, like 50 times, but I'm always so limited in time. So this was the first time, and I cut so many stuff, but it was like 2 hours. I guess it's like super ultra late already in Europe. So maybe I'm gonna choose a little bit earlier for the next presentation. Anyways, thank you all for listening and questions. I'm going to look through all of the chat because you guys just didn't stop writing to me. So I could not read nothing. I just saw the chat constantly jumping. I'm going to try to answer some of them right now. What I will do also, I do have some unreleased footage from the stuff that we explored. However, I'm really not sure that this is going to work with the software and everything. I'm gonna try to put it, and if one of you could maybe put in the chat if the video works, that would be really great. Okay, let me try that here. I guess it's gonna be like way too slow. Okay, I'm gonna tell you something else. Instead of streaming the video, I might just post it. Yeah, I think this is the better idea. Ultimately, because the video seems to be like really playing super slow on the streaming, so I am going to just post the video with the talk, and that's gonna make more sense. So guys, hey, sorry so much for taking so much of your time. Thanks for listening. Thank you again, Krzysztof Stanowski, for helping me out so much. Thank you to Philip, Ryan Dodd, Hans Kaspersets, Kim Davidson, all of the guys at ProTec, all of the people, my family, my mom, Lilo Widmann, my dad, Paul Widmann, my brother Stefan Widmann, Johanna, Lawrence, all my family, everybody that makes these things possible. And thank you and good night.